Hi, welcome to our channel Good New. Going into space is a pipe dream for most people. China's technology has now achieved a new peak. According to reports, China has committed $20 billion in the construction of a new star after Beidou. If all works properly, the phone will be able to retain a constant signal and will not lose contact wherever it travels. However, European and American countries first resisted this proposal, but behind the scenes, Western countries are trying to emulate. So, just what is this technology? It is the constellation Hongyan. This constellation will be made up of hundreds of tiny communication satellites that will give global mobile internet data access. The system outperforms the Starlink system in the United States. It will take China 10 years to finish. The Hongyan constellation is made up of 300 tiny satellites in low orbit and a worldwide data service processing hub. Under complicated terrain circumstances, it has all-weather, full-time, and real-time two-way communication capabilities, and it can provide users with worldwide real-time data communication and complete information services. The US was shocked by China's decision. As previously said, the most astonishing aspect of China Aerospace is that China always succeeds in its first shot. Zhurong likewise succeeded in its maiden Mars landing. So, can the Hongyan system succeed all at once? Is Hongyan constellation truly more strong than Starlink? Can it destabilize Musk's space hegemony? What benefits would it bring to China? That is exactly what we will be discussing today. The Hongyan constellation, like the US Starlink, is a worldwide satellite communication network. However, Western nations are interested because China's Hongyan constellation can not only provide mobile internet connections, but it also has a unique edge in that it can give 6G communications signal coverage straight from space to the ground in the future. Although the US Starlink may achieve the same thing, its ground users must carry an extra satellite receiving gear. In the early days of China's Hongyan constellation, this was also necessary. However, if China successfully develops 6G communication technology in the future, 6G communication base stations that can be mounted on satellites would be manufactured. As a result, the Hongyan satellite can broadcast 6G communications from orbit to the Earth. As a result, the Hongyan constellation will be significantly more powerful than the American Starlink system. In other words, once the Hongyan constellation has such capabilities, China will establish a satellite communication system capable of providing ground users with mobile internet connections at any time and from any location, considerably beyond the capabilities of Starlink in the United States. As we all know, China's Beidou satellite navigation system has surpassed the US GPS to become the world's second biggest navigation system. The period of the US GPS monopoly on the worldwide satellite navigation business came to an end after China finished the Beidou satellite navigation system network. Many countries declared plans to link to China's Beidou satellite network, thereby seizing a sizable GPS offshore market. China has also become the only country in the world capable of competing with the United States in the aerospace sector. A country that has achieved the top level in the field. As a result, American policymakers have exaggerated the space danger hypothesis, and the primary reason is that they are concerned that China would usurp their space dominion. It is clear that by establishing the Beidou satellite navigation system, China not only hastened the progress bar while connecting the Hongyan constellation, but also grew more skillful. The Hongyan constellation has sparked widespread interest because, if finished on schedule, it will be the most comprehensive satellite network system in existence. So, how does Hongyan constellation differ from Beidou in terms of breakthroughs? It may be divided broadly into two sections. The Hongyan system's most eye-catching feature, of course, is its robust satellite data interchange capability. Although the Beidou system performs comparable duties, the Hongyan constellation outperforms it. The Hongyan constellation is capable of worldwide two-way communication. It can not only send data in real time throughout the day, but it can also provide comprehensive coverage of the seas and poles, as well as perform real-time monitoring and tracking of aircraft carriers all over the world. This is hardly an exaggeration. After all, it implies that the Hongyan constellation has very good compatibility while being entirely independent of the Beidou navigation system. There have been claims that the United States has cracked the Beidou satellite navigation system. Although the veracity of this claim is uncertain, it does indicate that the United States has preconceived notions regarding Beidou satellites. If the US decides to tamper with the Beidou system, the Hongyan constellation can temporarily top the location of Beidou to guarantee that navigation and positioning on the ground are not disrupted. Second, China's primary goal for building a satellite internet is the Hongyan constellation. This is, in fact, based on the 6G field. Because the US failed to achieve an absolute edge in the 5G area, it presented the Star Chain plan to try to exceed 6G research and development. Obviously, the United States competes in the highly focused 6G market using an asymmetric kind of satellite internet. Based on existing Sino-US ties, if the US takes the lead in creating 6G, the scenario in the sphere of communications may be anticipated. Of course, this is not made up, because the US Starlink plan requires 12,000 satellites, and may eventually reach 42,000 satellites, despite the fact that the range that can be used to launch satellites and form Starlink is quite large. However, with such a large number, it will inevitably occupy a lot of satellite frequencies and low Earth orbits. After the completion of the US Starlink program, other countries are unlikely to have low Earth orbits for satellite launches. As a result, rather than launching satellites after being impacted by the Starlink plan, it is preferable to be the first to launch satellites into low Earth orbit in advance, just to break the enclosure action launched by the US with satellites. Perhaps someone is wondering why the Starlink project has tens of thousands of satellites, but the Hongyan constellation has just 300. Will there be no benefits after the US side completes the Starlink project? This is not the case, because a large number of satellites does not imply high performance. On the contrary, due to the huge number of satellites, there will be numerous follow-up issues, such as the major issue of follow-up maintenance. Although there are only 300 in the Hongyan constellation, it is less and more sophisticated than the Starlink design, and its construction and maintenance costs are similarly within controlled ranges. Of fact, even while the Starlink project has already launched many satellites into orbit, there is still a long way to go before reaching 12,000 satellites, and the Hongyan constellation is also proceeding well, so the Hongyan constellation may be finished before the Starlink project. Do you believe Hongyan constellation will be able to outperform the Starlink project in the near future? Thanks for watching in this video. You can add your ideas or suggestions below. Please keep following our channel and like our videos.